is A View for the Bridge, official podcast of the Belfast Giants for kingdomofthegiants.com. Today's Tuesday, the 31st of January 2023. It's like the fifth Tuesday in January that never ends. My name is Patrick Smith. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitter. You can also download us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, and all of your normal podcast providers. On this week's show, the Giants reach another Challenge Cup final, and once again, it's at the SSE Arena. And this is before two barnstorming performances led to 4 points over the Sheffield Steelers in what were arguably the games of the season so far. We'll get to those games shortly. Adam Keefe will join us to reflect upon them, and we'll have a bit of news. We've got a bit of a decision to make on the Player of the Month nominations, but we'll get to that. And Guildford are back this weekend before we welcome our potential Challenge Cup final opponents in Fife. Mr. Majimsey, how are you doing?
Paddy, I would be lying if I said it was 100%, but it's that time of year.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's the end of January, end of February. Everybody's playing on a wee bit beat up. Everybody's playing a wee bit hurt or a wee bit sick, and I'm no different. So I'm just like the rest of us. We're all just hanging in there to the end of the season. So just go to bat for us every night, you know.
Now, we also have, as people watching on YouTube may have seen, TV's Neil the Coach Russell. But as we started, now we were chatting before the show and it was fine. And now we've come back, we've started into the show, and we've added him in, and he can't hear us. So we're going to try to sort that out before we, as the show goes on, maybe Coach will add himself back in. But Davy, Coach is back for a show.
It's great fun. Unfortunately, Joel couldn't be with us tonight. I'm not sure what he's doing. Did he say what he's doing? Doing something anyway.
He's off to a show at the Waterfront Hall, by the looks of it. I'm judging that from Twitter.
So
something from
couldn't
Netflix.
Make it tonight. We were going to do it tomorrow night, or last night. Really couldn't do it last night for reasons we don't need to go into. But listen, I hope he's having a good night wherever he is, and absolutely hyper to have Coach on as well. Can't wait to get
once we're able to get him back in. Oh, hold on, he's just dropped himself out, so he's just reloading. But we'll crack on ahead by looking at the game against the Guildford Flames. Obviously, the Belfast Giants were in Challenge Cup semi-final mode with a 4-0 lead over the Guildford Flames before this game took place. Now, it wasn't the most straightforward of things for the Belfast Giants. It was a defeat on the night. 3-2 it was to the Guildford Flames. I'll bring up the statistics. Klimek and Fredericks made it. Well, I'll be honest with you. They put the fear of God on me with those 2 goals on the power play and short-handed. But the Giants were able to hit back. Mark Cooper and David Goodwin with an empty netter. Ryan Tate was the only other goal for the Guildford Flames. 6-3 on aggregate. The goalkeeper statistics, Tyler Bescarowani, 21 shots against, 3 goals against. And Ian McAdam, the other side, 28 shots against, 1 goal against. Your referees were Tom Perring and Oliver Truswell. Davy, the Guildford Flames kept us honest.
Yes, that's one way of putting it. I thought they got off to a pretty fast start. Of course, do you want to just pause there, Paddy? Can the coach hear us?
Can you hear us, Coach?
Got you loud and clear, boys.
Welcome back, mate. Before Davy gets stuck into it, how you doing?
I'm doing very well. Great to see the both of you. Great to be back on again, reliving past glories.
You've got the old band back together. We'll come to you in a second, Davy. Take off where you go. The Guildford Flames kept us honest.
Yes, I was just saying the fast start of the game, of course, getting that early power play goal for them was crucial. That gave them, we talk about it and we've talked about it for many years, how big momentum is in the game, and it gave them the chance to go at us. And then we've obviously coughed up the short-handed to make it 2-0 just midway through the first half of the second period. At that stage, I think it was Paddy said to put the fear of God into it. I wasn't too perturbed because we were still creating more chances, more grade A chances. Besco was doing well in nets. McAdam's a riddle that we haven't really solved that well, apart from last week in Guildford. Obviously, coming in this weekend, it's going to be difficult. I think the crucial thing was getting into that second period break at that scoreline. Everybody settled down, and then we came out and we scored in the first shift of the game. First shift of the third period, beg your pardon. Mark Cooper coming up with a really great goal, and that settled everything down. And from there, there was an element of game management, but there's also, I think we created the better chances. They've obviously then scored through Tate to make it 3-1, pull the goalie, throw everything at us for the last minute. We came up with the empty net goal. I thought across the 6 periods of the game, if you like, we controlled five periods of it, and we maybe had that first period where the Guildford Flames had to. As Coach would often say, you know, they came out foot in the throat and really went at us and showed what they've got. They've got a lot of speed. They've got in Tedesco and Tate. They've got two of the very best players in the league there, and they've got really solid goaltending. Good at the back there with Big Ben O'Connor, obviously always in around the top of the charts in terms of his defensive work. So, you know, it was difficult for the Belfast Giants. There's the goal from Cooper that sort of seals the deal for me. And I thought it was a comfortable enough tie across the 6 legs. All the work was obviously done in Guildford, and then we were able to manage the clock pretty well in the second half of the game in Belfast.
Coach, Guildford have shown. I thought at times in this game, Guildford shown why they're leading the league with regards to how difficult they are to. Davy mentioned David McAdam at the back, a bit of a difficult riddle to solve. I will clarify my fear of God. How many Challenge Cup semi-final second legs we go into where I thought the one in particular against Nottingham Panthers where I thought we should have this wrapped up and we don't. You know, it's so when they go 2 up. Did you have a worry?
Yeah, this was actually the one game I saw. Obviously, the double header. This is the one game that I missed last week. Obviously, caught up in the highlights, but I've seen plenty of Guildford over the last lot of years since I've been in the Elite League. Paul Dixon, I think, does a great job. I think it was last year, was it, that they probably had their first kind of difficult year in the Elite League. He does an unbelievable job. Obviously, he's got a healthy budget to kind of work with there in terms of recruiting players, but has that modus operandi, doesn't he, of like speed kills, speed and skill, and puts together a really good team. I think the Davies point, over the course of the 6 periods, the Giants kind of deserved to go through, but I think there was definitely a few nervous jitters. You know, whenever Guildford went up during the week there in that game. But you know, one thing that like jumps out to me, Paddy, was looking at it earlier on. A bit of a segue away from the Graham. What a great poke check there from David Goodwin. But the crowds that the Giants are bringing in here. I mean, that was a midweek game. Then obviously back-to-back Friday, Saturday against the Sheffield Steelers. Some unbelievable crowds that the Giants are bringing in now. And
5,100 in that game for a midweek game.
Yeah, 6,000 I think on Friday night and 6,500 on Saturday night. Just absolutely phenomenal. So Thorts and Glover and all the guys like Laura, everyone behind the scenes there, just doing an absolutely amazing job. But it's a great product on the ice, and again kind of talks to the Belfast Giants and kind of the growth and the embedment within the community that the Giants have. But it's obviously a great spectacle to go and watch live. I think the Giants, you know, we'll go on to talk about the weekend against the Steelers, and then looking down the second half of this season as we head down towards the stretch. But the Belfast Giants are just starting to truck now, just at the right time. Obviously, some issues maybe at the start of the season, just not playing as well as maybe Keefe and Thorge would have wanted. But you start to just see a few tweaks here to the roster and a few players coming to the fore. I think it's going to be a very exciting second half of the season for all Belfast Giants fans.
Of course, Davey, this now leads us into what is another Challenge Cup final, and for the second season in a row, another one hosted at the SSE Arena, which is crucial.
Well, we've won it at home, we've lost it at home, so we'll not just count our chickens on it being a banker because it's a home fixture. Obviously, the crowds that coaches obviously mentioned there can be of a great advantage. So, the crowd will go out to fill the barn whenever we know who the opponents are, and I'm sure whoever is matching up against us, I'll be looking to bring a crowd with them as well. You might even get the odd neutral over into the corner there in block 4, but it's got to be an advantage. And whilst this competition needs restructured, I kind of like that they brought they kind of made some of the dead rubbers in the group stages count, because the Belfast Giants had to go through that group stage unbeaten to come out as the number 1 seed. If we'd have thrown a couple of those dead rubbers away at the end there and perhaps lost a couple of games and you're coming out second, or you're getting a wild card and then you're chasing the whole time and you're not getting a home final. So whilst we all recognize that there's probably things that could be done better with the Challenge Cup, certainly for me, finished by like Halloween, Christmas at the latest would be, it should be the pre-season opener for me. But coach will have his thoughts on that, but we can go on debate on that another time. But it's great to host it at home. Looking forward to it. We'll find out our opponents soon, and a cup final is a cup final, and we're all here about hanging banners, so let's get at it.
Well, I'm just going to stick on that sort of topic, Coach, because obviously in your role as the general manager at the Manchester Storm, you've sat at that board table in the Elite League. Why, from their point of view, isn't it the case that we have it as a pre-season come finish by Christmas, finish by Halloween tournament?
Paddy used to be brought up all the time, probably by myself. I'll not maybe name names. I don't want to throw some of the
names.
Some of the GMs, owners under the table, but there were certainly 2 or 3 of us around the table. I remember at the time that were very much in favour of exactly what Davy's just articulated there, almost that pre-season fit. I've always said as well, and I remember bringing it up on one occasion. For me, I wouldn't start the season until the latter part of September, early part of October, almost once you get into the winter months. I think it's very difficult to sell tickets, generally speaking, in the latter part of August, early part of September. Families are still away on holidays. Month of September is an expensive one as well. Families are paying off their holidays from the summer. The kids are back to school uniforms, etc., etc. And I just think hockey is a winter sport, and people associate the cold, dark winter nights with going to the SSE or going to hockey, wherever it may well be, the Storm Shelter, Sheffield Arena, Nottingham Arena, wherever it may well be. People associate it, and I was always in favour of kind of pushing the season back. The Challenge Cup was always the one that just used to. I tell you what, I can tell you this categorically as well from the players' point of view. Certainly in my time in Manchester, players absolutely hated the structure, the format of the competition. They felt that it made no sense whatsoever. There were big gaps between certain stages to the latter stages, etc., etc. It just made no sense to people. Whereas I agree entirely with Davy. For me, it would be a kick off the season, almost bang, 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 the whole way through, and have it done and dusted by Halloween, early part of December. For me, but there was never a real appetite. And I suppose the make it make sense to me comment was probably made on a couple of occasions. It just was never really had much of an appetite to change it. If the truth be told, you're going back a few years now. You're going back whatever 7 or 8 years since I last sat on the board with Manchester. But yeah, I was all in favour of changing it up. Didn't like the format at all.
It's one of those. I think it's one of those that the fans will always talk about. But I guess there'll be organisations that think if it isn't broke, don't fix it. Where we've got to a point now where Belfast Giants are going to yet another Challenge Cup final. It's sort of working for us. And you're absolutely right. You look at the crowds now coming into the winter and the building the crowds. No doubt that whenever this game is, and I think we're looking again possibly at mid-March, but whenever this final is, no doubt, hopefully we'll get another large crowd at the SSE.
What's the score in what's the score in the other leg? Is it Pfeiffer up against Sheffield? Is that right?
Pfeiffer 3-2 up.
Yeah, they are. And that game's on. That second is on the 3rd of February. No, when's that second leg? Tomorrow night?
Yeah,
Wednesday night.
But I haven't seen too much. I've seen other stuff coming out of Sheffield today, but haven't.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. But it's we've got it'll be the Sheffield or Fife obviously leading in that. This will be big thanks and a happy birthday to Mark Brooks. His statistic. This will be the 8th final to take place at the SSE. This 8th final to take place in Belfast, not necessarily at the SSE Arena. And obviously not necessarily involving the Belfast Giants either.
Remember the first one vividly, boys?
Air Scottish Eagles against the Sheffield Steelers in 2001. Mm-hmm. A good day. Right. Highlights from that game. Our friends at Giants TV, and let's crack on to the weekend. It was a doubleheader at home against the Sheffield Steelers, and what we all thought would be pretty much a crucial weekend leading to where this season was going to end up. And the first game was a successful one for the Belfast Giants, a 5-3 win for your Belfast Giants. Goals come from Hook, a hat-trick from Conway, and an absolute stunner of a game-winning goal from Ben Lake. Sheffield Steelers goals come from Christo, Scott Allen, and returning. It was announced that morning, returning to the Sheffield Steelers on the power play, Marc-Olivier Vallerand. We'll come to him as well. With regards to statistics in goal, that's a brilliant life stats. Jackson Whistle, 28 shots against, 3 goals against. The other side, Matthew Greenfield, 57 shots against, 5 goals against. And Dults, and the best referee from the Northeast, his mum told me that, Steve Brown, were your referees. Coach, start with you. This was a game full of aggression, ability. The whole weekend, it was set up the whole weekend. Just fabulous hockey.
listen, both games will come on to the Saturday night in a minute, but the Friday night I thought was absolutely superb game of hockey. Thought Belfast Giants were excellent throughout. Sheffield obviously came into the game kind of the second period, started to kind of really put the Giants under pressure, showed their quality, etc., etc. But I think whenever you look at big games, you're looking big performances from your big players. And there's, I know I've a bit of a fanboy on the likes of Mark Cooper, but Scott Conway is absolutely top drawer, arguably the best player in the league. And comes up clutch, doesn't he? And big moments for the Belfast Giants, and it's why he's probably a number one to get signed up for Thorts and Keefe every single summer. So I'm sure that'll be no different again this summer coming up. But the top performance, I think you made reference to the Ben Lake's goal there as well. One of the best goals that I've seen actually in the recent past. I mean, the skill set on that was absolutely immense. Thought the Giants, as you can see here, just zipping the puck around, albeit on the power play, but just zipping the puck around beautifully. Guys crashing the net, never too far away from the action there. Mark Cooper, I know it was a Conway goal, but Cooper does so much, like the little intangibles that I absolutely love in a hockey player. Mark Cooper is right at the epicenter of it on all occasions, making a hassle of himself in front of goal, screening goaltenders, putting D-men under pressure, taking the attention away from the puck. And he does an absolutely fantastic job. There he is there, look, like always there, blue paint.
Take the eyes.
It takes, boys, I've said it for I think 2 decades now. Hockey is a simple game, but it requires somebody or players willing to take the hit to make the plays, and Mark Cooper is one of those players that's not afraid to get into the dirty areas, take cross checks in the back of the neck, all for the good of the team and to create that space and opportunity for his team. We'll maybe go on to talk about that adulation for Mark Cooper later on, but no, I thought the Giants were absolutely superb. You see the way the boys kind of zipping the puck around there. That's a team playing with confidence, and whenever a team is zipping the puck around like that, Sheffield Steelers are twirling on their ankles, trying to find the puck. It's top drawer hockey to watch. Absolutely love watching both the games, for different reasons actually. Saturday night was a lot tighter. Obviously, this one was more free flowing in many ways. But look where Mark Cooper is again, there, boys. Can I just point out again, making a nuisance of himself always. So. Yeah, great, superb game.
The games that took place in Sheffield, the doubleheader we had in Sheffield, the points were split, and the Giants and the Steelers having their own nights. What gave the Giants the edge this weekend, and particularly in this game?
A little bit of grit. This is the Ben Lake goal here, and I don't know if anybody was watching just before that. Gabe Bassett stepped into the play, and Ben Lake had gone third man high. He's broke up an attacking play. The Sheffield Steelers, he's won the puck back, he's made the breakout, and then he's gone and posted up there and with a great redirect shot. Ben Lake's probably involved in that goal 3 or 4 times, and it's simple to say what a great goal by Ben Lake, but his overall contribution to that previous 20 seconds was stopping a goal at the other end, being the first outlet pass, being the second man in the offensive zone. He did everything in that play. And I think we got a lot of buy-in. You hear the likes of Keefe and stuff when they're getting interviewed saying about everybody pulling on the rope that night, and I think we just got that performance where we didn't want to be beaten. 5-on-5, I thought were really strong. That first period we came out and we fired something like 20 shots at Greenfield, and he was seeing them all, and then whenever you've got the likes of Cooper going in front of him and he can't see it, he can't save it, and it's the same as the Conway to Goodwin to Conway. Get the puck across that Royal Road, get the goalie moving left to right, get the goalie frozen, and you'll score goals. And that's what we did. We just, at times, we outworked the Sheffield Steelers. And then when you outwork them, the ability and the skill levels, work out, the better skilled players come to the game. And I think I don't know if it was you and Coach or you and Says, whatever group. I know it's not a massive call to make on a Friday afternoon. I says Scott Conway is going to be man of the match both games today. He's been playing, he's been playing really, really well. But cometh the hour, cometh the man. And it's not massive to say Scott Conway's going to be good this weekend because he's been good all season. But big games, Scott Conway has the ability to rise even to another level. Scored a hat-trick, gets the game-winning goal on Saturday night. He you talk about Ben Lake's two-way game, same as Scott Conway, hitting numbers are outstanding, blocking shots that you don't necessarily want the Scott Conway doing, but he does it. He's tough as take. He's, some people say about being sneaky tough, but he's not. He's overtly tough now. He goes in, he's getting roughing calls, he's getting interference calls, he's getting in and mixing up every breakdown. He's chirping, as you know he loves to do. But I can't see that weakness that doesn't make him the coach talks about arguably the league's MVP. For me, he is the league's MVP. Argue somebody else, put another name in the hat there, and we've seen someone discussing Cole Sanford the other day. Speed merchant, absolutely brilliant. Love him in Belfast. Would I swap him for Scott Conway? So there's the question. Absolutely not. Tedesco in Guildford. Again, another great player. Would I swap him for Scott Conway? No. So all these players that you're talking about being league MVPs, you then got to say, right, okay, you can have them in Belfast, but you've got to give them Scott Conway. And I don't think there's a player in this league I would swap at the minute for Scott Conway ever, actually.
And of course, when he scored that goal down the Sheffield Steelers end, he turned straight to the Sheffield Steelers fans, arms out, calls them in, an element of his game that I absolutely love. Let's have a look. Sorry,
but if we go back to the game, sorry to bore anybody, we came out to that really good start, got that 2-0, and 5-on-5. I say we controlled this game 5-on-5. The refs made, and you can questionable calls. You heard the commentary about it. Allowed Sheffield that foothold back into the game. They make it 3-2, they make it 3 each, and then it's Belfast Giants poured on at that stage. It wasn't like, right, we've got a point here, let's take it to overtime. On Friday night, we went for it. We got that fourth goal. Obviously, we've got a power play ourselves. Mark Cooper, again, coach, drives down the left wing, gets that body. I love that play where a player can, I'm doing it on TV here, where a player can get his body across and force the D-man where he hasn't got a play other than the trip, and he takes him down, he goes into Greenfield. We get the power play goal, and then we go on and win the game 5-3. I just thought it was a really strong performance, and I think Aaron Fox tipped his cap afterwards and said, the best team won on the night.
I think as well. I think from my side of things, just build off what Davey said there as well. Sometimes I think, and this is probably my old school hat on, I know the three of us are kind of old school and been around the block with this sport and obviously the team over the years. But I think in the recent past, we've probably, you and I have stood over the last few years, Paddy, at different stages and the storm shelter and haven't been happy about pushback and showing a bit of, the old school toughness. And the game has obviously changed and all the rest. But we saw a bit of that, didn't we, on Friday night as well, that pushback from the Belfast Giants and willing to kind of step up to the plate, drop the gloves, and kind of showed, what, we're here for this double header. We're here. We're on the march. We're heading towards, the latter part of the season, the real business end. And we saw a really good slick on ice performance, but then we saw the toughness coming in there as well. Let's
have a look at what you're talking about. Towards the end of the game, with the game more or less done and dusted, with seconds left, there was a bit of an altercation, which had its ramifications for the next night.
It's an important play here now. There's a little bit of opposite that far side. Keefe Boston, and now jumping in there is. They need to be careful.
Keefe Boston's on the gloves off.
This is McNally. McNally should be thrown out of the game. Is that him missing tomorrow night?
I don't know, but it's in the last 2 minutes, right?
It is.
Last 2 minutes, and Keefe Boston doesn't even have his gloves off.
No. So McNally should be thrown out here, and there's a bit of Ben Lake and Petgrave. Ben Lake feeding Petgrave right. Petgrave can back there right, and Lake takes him down. There's a little bit of afters here now as well with Brandon Whistle and Sam Ruyop. Ben Lake heads down the tunnel to applause from his teammates, and Matt Petgrave heads down his tunnel.
A player who is deemed to be instigator/aggressor of an altercation in the final 5 minutes of regulation time or at any time in overtime shall be suspended one additional game pending review of the incident. That was the determination of the Department of Player Safety on Brandon McNally, and therefore with his 2-minute minor, 5-minute major and 20-minute game misconduct, he was suspended for the following night. But Davy, as coach said, the aggression, the pushback, that was also partially the Steelers trying to set out their stall that they weren't going to be bullied leading into the game on Saturday.
Yeah, obviously the coach had made a decision that McNally wasn't playing and sent him out to send that message. going picking Gabe Bast isn't the smartest idea. You know, Basty's not going to drop gloves with him there, and you got people like Sam Roop and Ben Lake come from another postcode to back their teammates up, which is absolutely absolutely love to see that. So, you know, from a team perspective,
a bit of a pushback on whether Rupper was third man in, but I don't feel that was the case.
He was thrown out of the game for third man in. However, according to the rule book, you can't be third man in the altercation that's getting a game misconduct. So he shouldn't have been thrown out of the game. But however, Ben Lake fights any secondary fight, one that's already taken place, also comes with a game misconduct. So no secondary suspension from them. It's fairly clear you fight in the last 5 minutes of the game, you're getting a one game. So, you know, Fox sent him out there. I can't imagine that Gabe Bast is really the one guy you'd want to be going after in the team. You know, it sort of seems to me like Sam Roop would wind people up more. Ben Lake perhaps would wind people up more. So it was a bit of a cheap shot one for me. Maybe they just grabbed the first guy that he could when he got off the bench. But yeah, try to send a message. Did it work? It's hard to know.
Well, Gabe Bast is our most offensive defenseman. No, he's putting up points.
Him and Will Cullen would be of a similar standard in terms of, and Josh Roach is obviously very offensively gifted as well. So the three of them, but you know, other than what's the payoff in the last 5 minutes for fighting there? You know, where we're 5-3 up, the game was dead and buried. It can only be to send the message, and in that case, Dobson came up with the right call with the suspension, so it's clear in the case book. But in terms of, I know you've had your bugbear about it, Paddy, that you know they still play with a full roster the following night.
I don't. Well, we had this conversation. I know that it was brought up as the fact that under the new rules, which have been in for a couple of seasons now within the Elite League, what used to happen was if an import was suspended, then you're not allowed to replace them with another import. That's been taken away, and therefore the Sheffield Steelers didn't lose any sort of capability from the imports on the bench because they're one of the more successful teams, one of the more affluent teams like ourselves, and are able to put another import into that slot just to fill where McNally has been suspended from. Now, ultimately, you know, if this was a league that was full of financial parity, and I'm not going to go down the line that we've had arguments before, Coach, I can see the smirk on your face, but I think this is a different matter. If this was financial parity and every team was able to carry an import, then I would understand the rules being this way. But you can't dictate the rules this way when it's not like that. I think it does impede the likes of the Manchester and Fife. You know, if you're not able, Coach, to carry that extra import financially, then the Elite League are ruling through their own dictation against you.
Totally and utterly agree. I know we had this on our WhatsApp group last night. 100% in agreement. It definitely favours the big boys, and that in this instance is not right. It's not fair. So I'm totally in agreement with you on that front. To Davy's point, McNally sent out there by Fox, knowing damn rightly that he's got a replacement lined up for the following night. Not an issue whatsoever. God knows might be sent out to do a bit of damage. I wouldn't think Aaron Fox or any coach would be doing that in modern day stuff, but you just never know what comes of it. But it's it's a rule that I just don't like, and I don't understand either, to be honest.
It's if they've got that rule where you go and fight in the last 5 minutes of the game, you're getting suspended. There's a penalty, but the Steelers as an organization, if you like, and goes for any team, the discussion goes across the board. There's no penalty. You know, they've lost. There was 10 seconds left in the game. They've lost a player for 10 seconds. And all the penalties actually ended up balancing out probably, or we maybe came off with a very 10-second power play. The next night, now I know in the case book that it says about the coach can get fined or whatever, but fine, schmang, what's a fine to Aaron Fox, £200 or whatever for sending a player out in the last 5 minutes to fight. So the Steelers effectively have been allowed to go. So it ultimately didn't affect the Giants, and I think they're professional enough not to get involved in that. You can see the way fighting is in the game. There was no score settled on Saturday night. There was nobody like from the Giants looking to go from the first face-off or anything like you'd have got 10, 12 years ago, whatever. And, so that I don't really see what Fox was doing other than possibly to G his own players up and say, lads, this has been not good enough from us. I know Tony Smith in the statement, and we'll come on to it, about them being second best and beat into the corners. They were just second best, and that doesn't necessarily come down to their effort levels. It comes down to the compete level of the Belfast Giants being better on that night. And sometimes your best isn't as good as the best of the other team, and we just had a very strong performance from Belfast on Friday night.
Let's hear the thoughts of the two coaches before we move on to Saturday's game.
Yeah, I mean, every game from here on out for both teams is going to be massive. But there was obviously a little buzz about this one here. You could feel that from morning skate on. I thought it was a playoff atmosphere. Both teams, I thought, played well. Would have liked to see a little less special teams in that game, just to see it played out 5-on-5. But I think both teams ended up with 2 power play goals, and so it was obviously a factor in the game. But I thought it was a great game, start to finish. A lot of things, a lot of entertaining pieces to that game.
Yeah, I mean, game management there, the last 5-6 minutes has got to be a little bit better. We go south, ends up back below our goal line. And then we got 2 forwards that are our first guys back, so we get out of coverage a little bit and leave the weak side point open. And then we just don't take care of the net front there. You got to find bodies and sticks, and we didn't there. And, loved our battle back, down 2-0 after the first period. A very good 2-way physical hockey game. I thought, both goalies made some key saves at times throughout that game as well. And like you said, entertaining. I can't fault our compete. Our compete level, our work ethic was there tonight. Still got some details in our game that we need to clean up defensively, and they cost us tonight.
From Belfast Giants TV, and we move on to Saturday's game between these two sides. 6,517 people, phenomenal crowd at the SSE Arena, watched the 0-0 hockey game. The 0-0 after overtime. The Belfast Giants win in a shootout. Scott Conway credited with the game-winning goal on that. Tyler Beskorowany, 29 shots against, no goals against, and Matthew Greenfield, 30 shots against, no goals against. Palva Hallis, and the best referee from the Northeast, as his mum tells me, Steve Brown, for your referees. Stat question, Davy. Shutouts, one to both?
One for each. Yep.
One for each. So that's just they both awarded with a shutout regardless of the outcome.
Both awarded with a shutout, but there is a game-winning goal which goes to the winning shootout penalty shot, which was Scott Conway on the night.
Which is Scott Conway. Well, stay with you. You mentioned the fact that we've had a number of 0-0s, all seem to be against the Sheffield Steelers. I remember one in Sheffield. The guts of 10 years ago. That one wouldn't be that long. But this is remarkable because it was one of the most entertaining 0-0 games of hockey I've ever seen.
Funny, I was looking because someone had asked me the stat. I didn't know it off the top of my head, and I went and looked at it. And yes, we've had four 0-0 draws. That 3 have went to overtime penalty shots. 3 of which we've won. 1 ended in a tie back in the day, back in Super League days, whenever you were allowed to finish tie. All against the Sheffield Steelers. This was the first one at the SSE Odyssey. I was just thinking about it earlier because the 3 of us actually did the podcast after the one in Sheffield. It's 2014, 2015. It was the Steve Thornton season when Steve was back coaching. I think it was the season after Paul Eadie had left. And it was I remember talking about it on the podcast about it being such an entertaining game of hockey because it was a game of chess. It was technically, from both coaches, from the playing staff on the ice, was superb. Obviously, in 0-0, goaltending is key, and Greenfield and Besko both, put on a clinic on the night. And this is pretty much just the highlights from overtime. And some of the saves that Besko made, he had no right making. But the same can go for Greenfield at times. In these real tight games, it's about getting that first goal, and neither team was willing to give it up. And I thought it was just a really, really good game of hockey. I love these both teams came out and were physical. There's high skill, there's speed. Lital was still going after 65 minutes there. You think Goodwin, you think he's getting a breakaway and he's able to come back. And you say the same about our own Ben Lake. Will Cullen makes an unbelievable back check, diving, with a stick. They have a 2-on-0 breakaway, and he's able to gas himself back. And it's not this one, I don't think. But this is where Besko comes up with like a triple save. And as I said on Twitter the other day, is 3,000 save in tail after, whatever, 180 games or whatever. So he's been superb for us. And, I think from his own perspective, coming back, there's been chat about, he would maybe take a few weeks to get going. that looked like mid-season form for Pesco there. He's had a couple of goals that I'm sure he would like back that he's, on video over the last couple of weeks in the games he's played, but that was really, really strong. And then you go into the, even to be fair, if we go back to the Guildford game, like that goal that they had on the breakaway, the short-handed, the guy goes to make a move and it bobbles off his stick and Pesco plays the move and it 5 holes. And it's like just very, very unlucky. So it's been there. He really, really strong performance. Like what I've seen, and and then we'll go on to get the opportunities and penalty shots and tuck 2 away. This might be the Will Cullen one. We'll let that play.
It is.
He comes back and makes a really good play, and they're away to the races there, and that could be game over. So, guys that keep going to the 65th minute, saying a lot for our conditioning as well, because these have been hard games, and we were right there to the very, 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 very end.
I think as well, Pat, sorry, Pat, it was just on the Pesco front. I think, like, I certainly speak for myself whenever it was announced that he was coming back. I think, well, I certainly was surprised, shocked. He had obviously said he was hanging up the skates and all the rest. I'm thinking, my goodness, difficult for a goaltender having not played in whatever it would have been 8 months. I don't know if he was playing any men's league or
in rack every week.
Okay. So he was keeping his eye in, so to speak. But to step up back into the elite league, having not played any kind of professional hockey, whatever you're thinking, it's going to be a big adjustment again for him. And maybe to Davy's point, a couple of goals that he's conceded since he's been back that he maybe would have wanted. He's maybe thinking to himself, would be very easy as a player who had already retired to think, if I made the right decision or not, should have just stuck with retirement. What am I doing? But the likes of that game and that performance will honestly put the fear of God into opposing coaches and players all throughout the elite league, because when Tyler Besco-Wani plays like that and is in that form and has that level of confidence, Belfast Giants are an incredibly difficult opposition to defeat. I thought he was absolutely superb. And that triple save in overtime was just out of this world good.
One thing about that game, coach, as well, is the fact that you take about the game of 2 halves, I guess. The first 20, 30 minutes, the Belfast Giants were peppering Greenfield's net. They were on top. They were playing remarkable hockey and really putting Sheffield under the cosh. But then as the game grew longer, the Sheffield Steelers grew stronger and stronger, but the Giants had to put up that sort of rearguard defense that we'd seen from the Sheffield Steelers in the first half of the game.
Is that for me? Sorry, I
thought
yes. Okay, yeah, no, totally agree. Listen, Sheffield are a very, very good side. Their record speaks for itself. I know Guildford and Guildford are leading the way with Cardiff just behind. Sheffield obviously chasing everyone down along with Belfast. Sheffield are a top side, well coached by Aaron Fox as well. They're always going to come into games. They're always going to be difficult to beat, home or away. And we saw it there, and we'll probably go on to talk about it. The owners' comments and so on and so forth after this weekend. Tony Smith's comments. Sheffield are hunting down a league title. We know what Sheffield are like and have been over the years. I mean, was it Jared Adams that was a league winning coach, and he was sacked, I think, to bring Paul Thompson in and what have you?
He was.
That's a club that's kind of run very ruthlessly, and in many ways, success is what the Sheffield Steelers are built on, and they don't accept mediocrity, which in many ways I admire as a sporting club, and one that is always super aspirational. So the pressure will be on Aaron Fox on the back of that, overly kind of reasonably poor weekend for them, only taking away 1 point. From the entire weekend. So the pressure will be on. We've seen that in the comments that have come out in the last kind of 12 hours.
We'll come back to those comments when we come to the news, because I know we've got Adam Keefe waiting in the wings to have a chat with us. But ultimately, Davy, from the 2 performances this weekend and the way that the Giants, well, over the week, but especially this weekend against the Sheffield Steelers, and the way that this game on Saturday went, it was one of those games, it was one of those weekends where people had circled, and the Giants have come out with 4 points.
Can't ask any more than that. I'm sure that the coach will, he's probably particularly hard on himself, and at times he'll probably wish that they hadn't give that point away as well. But that second night, that when the game against Guildford, which was Guildford came and played hard, we then had the very physical game on Friday night, and you've got to be tired. These guys they're only human; they're not machines. And come Saturday night late in the game, it's going to be tiring. And there was a lot of just let's get the puck in our defensive zone, let's get it up and out, get it in the neutral zone, get it down into our blue zone, and reset, get line changes. I thought we were very disciplined when it came to line changes. Coach knows it's something I love watching, getting boys on and off, get them on, do their job, get them off. And one thing that kind of annoyed me, I suppose, from Saturday was Gary getting hurt. I obviously don't know what the status on him is, but he's been a bit further down the depth of late because we're carrying those 6 import D and there's not as we've got a lot of depth in the forwards as well. So hasn't been playing as many minutes as he has in previous season, but he comes in there and he does a real simple job and does pretty well. So hopefully Gary's not too badly hurt. But I just think that I'll look forward to asking Adam the question about rest. I think at this stage of the season, it's just get rest and recuperation as much as you can because, I'm not going to say the Giants look tired because, as I just said a couple of minutes ago there, I thought we'd done really, really well going to the 65th minute and beyond and on the third night and what was like 5 nights of hockey. So, I don't know what I'm waffling on about here really, Paddy.
The performance, Davey, but I agree. The performance overall was just... exactly what we wanted from this weekend.
To dig deep, the way in which the Giants did on that third game in the space of whatever it was, 4 days, 5 days, was very, very impressive. And as I said earlier on, taking it forward, that type of momentum, energy in the building just can ramp up the players, Adam, Steve, the whole organization for heading down the stretch.
We're gonna move it on because we know we've got Adam Keefe. We appreciate him waiting in the wings for so long. I knew that when Coach came on, we'd be rattling on for quite a while. It's going to strap in. It's a 3-hour show. The highlights from the games, as the highlights from the whole weekend, are available from our good friends at Belfast Giants TV. And given them, they are of course the ones who support us on the fan agenda. And we are delighted to welcome back two of you from the great. We were just talking about him, the head coach of your Belfast Giants, Adam Keefe. How are you doing, Coach?
Not bad, guys. How's it going?
Yeah, Keefe.
Doing very well. Give us your reflection. You've just, I'm sure you were listening in there. Give us your reflections on how happy you were with how the weekend went.
Yeah, can't complain. But you were right. I would have liked the regulation win. But obviously, no, it was a great weekend. Guys were great all weekend. That's one of the things that as a coach you want to know, especially coming into the big games, that you're the best version of your team is going to show up, and we're starting to show that. Like that. You come into that game on last Wednesday, not this past Wednesday, but the Wednesday before that in Guildford, hoping that we're going to have our best performance, and I thought we did. Obviously built ourselves a 4-0 lead in that first leg of the cup that ultimately saw us through the second leg. And then you go up, on the fifth and the sixth game of a 2-week span there against Sheffield. You're not sure if you're going to have your best, but certainly on Friday, our execution was great, and we saw the best of our team there.
Interestingly as well, I think over the last number of weeks, we've had quite a few sort of 3 games in 4 days, certainly Friday, Saturdays with the Challenge Cups semi-finals thrown in. So the games have been coming thick and fast. And Davey spoke there about conditioning. What we saw from that game on Saturday was that the guys were able to hold it for that 65 minutes.
Yeah, you'd like to think by this point in the season that guys are in shape and in game shape at least. But I mean, fatigue certainly plays a factor. And I think the times that we've had a full week to prepare and come in, I've liked majority of our games, bar that Manchester weekend. When we've had time to prepare and recover, we've been pretty good. It's usually the second night that causes us problems, or the third and fourth game of a week or something like that, where we are fatiguing. And that's when the execution goes, and that's when we struggle to score goals. So I think you saw a little bit of that Saturday night in Sheffield. Our execution wasn't quite on, but we were still playing well. Guys were still competing very hard. Our finish wasn't quite there.
Coach, you've been in post-game interviews probably since, I'm going to say mid-December, referencing now and again about boys being tired, and it kind of feeds off what Paddy's saying there. And we're talking, I don't know if you heard us talking a few minutes ago, how important is rest over almost training? How important is it just to get days off?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I mean, that's one thing that I focused on since I started to coach. I think that it comes from playing and making sure that guys have full energy for the weekend. I mean, ultimately, we want to see a rambunctious group that's going out there full of life and full of energy and intensity. If they're fatigued from the training or they're fatigued from the week, that's you maybe sometimes don't get the best of everybody. So it's a very tough job to find that balance between training hard enough to keep our pace very high for the game, but not so hard that they're sore come time to play the game. So it is a tough balance that we're still trying to find. You never get it right all the time. But not just physically, I think mentally, to get some time away from the game and time away from each other, time away from me, and time for me away from the guys. Sometimes that's great. Guys can shut their hockey brain off. It's a high stress environment here. I mean, I know that you guys live and breathe Giants and the passion you have with, us winning and ultimately being in the league title race and winning it. And, we carry that on our shoulders and that's, very stressful. So, it's important that guys get days away from the rink to relax, chill out, so that when they come back to the rink today, they're full of energy and their batteries are recharged. So I like to give guys those types of mental breaks, almost more than the physical breaks. I think the mental breaks are almost more important because in this type of league where every game is super important from day one, it can get pretty stressful.
Keefe, big decision, obviously, bringing Besko back in, which I think surprised quite a few people. Not because of his ability, obviously, but just because of the fact that he had obviously hung up the skates. Superb performance on Saturday evening in that fantastic victory that we've already talked about. What was your thought process in bringing Besko back, but also kind of how have you found him settling back into the team? You're obviously happy with what you've seen so far from him and happy with the tandem with him and Jackson?
Yeah, I think, start with Jackson. I mean, Jackson's play's been spectacular all year, and he's been great for us. And I think there was a period of time in November or late October where we felt that we weren't winning games as much as we would have liked to. We were getting out goalied in a couple of the games. Not to say that our goalies were playing bad, but we felt that there were some goalies that were stealing games from us, and so that was where just from speaking with Besko, and I speak regularly with him anyways, and he was intrigued about the opportunity to come back, and when that type of conversation happens, it's not something you say no to. And Besko wanting to come back here and wanting another crack at winning another league title and Challenge Cups and ultimately the playoffs that's eluded all of us. It's not something you say no to at that point. And I thought through December, Jackson and Peyton Jones were very good for us. Both got on a run of form. The team got on a run of form. And at that point, we'd already known behind the scenes that Besko was going to be returning. And when that happened, obviously you have a 3-goalie problem. And I thought that was a great problem to have. And we were going to work our way through it and see where it ended up. Obviously, Peyton wasn't a fan of that, and that changed things. I thought that Jackson and Besko worked very well together last season, and I think they're going to work very well together again this season. And what you've seen on the weekend was a great example of that.
Obviously, the Besko wasn't the only sort of new face, in inverted commas, that we brought in. There have been a few sort of through the door and a number of changes, some more expected than others, I guess, with like Eriksson coming in. We had obviously Cooper coming in. When you and Steve sit down and you're looking through the season, and we constantly hear about how the pool of players out there is quite shallow. How difficult is it to find the right player to fit into what you're looking for?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I mean, and there's there's a lot of things going on, especially mid-season when you're worried about the next game or practices and everything. There's not a whole lot of time to really do a whole lot of digging and get players here immediately. So I mean, you do your reference checks and you try and find the guys that are going to fit in as much as possible, but ultimately everybody's a risk. And this league is different. It's not easy to come into this league and have an impact. It takes a certain type of player, a very competitive player, I think, to really have success in this league.
I think just building off that and Paddy's question, always intrigued whenever you pull somebody out from, say, the league below in the form of Grant Cooper. I mean, is that Thorts? Is that you? Are you scouting around other leagues, or are you just plucking out? You obviously see Cooper flying high on the the scoring charts and all the rest. But do you or Steve actually see what's going on in the leagues below and keep your eye on certain players?
I think Grant Cooper's name in particular, it caught our attention from the start of the season when Leeds signed him. I think he was a Friendship 4 player with Clarkson. Mm-hmm. And just looking at his resume, we thought that was a pretty good hockey player for the EIHL to be signing. Yeah. So we paid attention to that throughout the year, but you ultimately hope that the imports that we brought in, that was going to be us for the year. So you're paying attention to it, but you don't think much of it. Then obviously the success that he had in the EIHL, and from speaking with his agent, he wanted a chance at this level before the end of the season. And it just worked out that way, that the way we thought that our lineup, we thought we needed a bit of shot of new life, new energy into the group. And the fact that he was over here, his references were great, and he's scoring right now. So he's playing with a lot of confidence. But it was more so than the fact he was scoring. You look at him now and his references check out in the sense that he's a complete player. I mean, he's very intelligent out there. He's willing to block shots. He's willing to finish checks. He works hard. He goes to the dirty areas and makes great plays on the wall, out of your zone. Those were the little things that convinced me there's no risk in taking Grant Cooper from the EIHL. If he's willing to do those things for us and those things alone, whether he scores a goal or not, he's going to help our team, and he certainly has done that.
Going to a couple of questions we got from people watching in live. One there from Stephen Mills, but more or less on the same sort of vein, I guess. He's asking about Eriksson and what he's going to be like when we get some momentum behind him. He chases everything down. How do you feel he's settling in?
Yeah, I think he's going to be a very good player for us. I think he's one of those players that you bring in. He's a high scoring forward from Norway, but he's played in many different types of leagues. I think he's still trying to figure out this league, and you can see signs of a real explosion of offense coming from him. But the games are certainly not getting any easier. The intensity level keeps getting higher, and it's playoff style. And I think he's still trying to find his feet and all of that. Obviously, this past weekend, I'm not sure if it was made clear or not, but on Friday night he was was sick for that day. It's kind of a 24-hour thing where he was okay the next day. So, that was the reason he was out there. So I still think that Hank is going to be a very important piece to the puzzle here. And, like I said, it is a difficult league. It's much different than a lot of leagues in the sense that every single game is like a playoff atmosphere, especially at this time of the year. It doesn't matter if you're playing the top of the table or the bottom of the table. Everybody's playing for something very important. And you got coaches that are pretty stressed out about that. So, they're on you pretty tight. So, you're getting the best of everybody every night.
One from Alan Brett. This one we talked about earlier on, actually, just asking about the status on Mark Garside, who went out at the weekend pretty badly with going up against the boards.
Yeah, I spoke to Gary there today. I didn't speak to him over the last couple of days. I think everybody was just taking some time to cool off from the weekend. But I spoke to Gary there earlier today, and I spoke to the physio yesterday. And he's looking like it'll be at least a few weeks, but doesn't look like it's going to be, anything long term, which is good. And I suppose the one good thing is Mark's been here many times before with the shoulder. So, he knows how to rehab it, and I expect he'll be back as soon as he can be.
We had Sandra up on last week, obviously just fresh off his selection for Team GB. Your involvement is also there, of course, as a coach. And not next weekend, but the weekend after, we have the games that are sort of, there's no Elite League games that weekend. But with regards to Rubber, what do you think he brings? Why do you think he is such a selection for Team GB?
Well, I think first of all, he's a great player. I mean, he's got a little bit of offense. He's a big, strong guy. He angles well. He shuts the plays down very fast. He's got a great stick on him. He can make plays. He can be a defensive force as well. So, I mean, it certainly, he touches a lot of areas that he'll cover for GB, and I think he's another guy that's going to go in there and help that team, especially from the back end. And he's excited to get there and be a part of that. And I'm happy for him. I know that was one of the things we spoke about when we signed him was, do your time here and you'll get that opportunity. He's still got to go out and earn it and make the team and become a part of it. And I'm confident that he will do that.
Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Before we let you go, obviously, the game against Guildford and Fife at home this weekend. Guildford in particular, obviously, we did well against them to get past them to reach that Challenge Cup final, but they are leading the league. They are getting the wins. How's preparation going for the game against them this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's always fun to play a team like this when you've played them recently twice, so you kind of have a better understanding of what you're up against. So the preparation in practice will be a little bit of preparation in terms of what we're going to face against. Guildford is a very fast team that forechecks very hard. They don't turn a lot of pucks over. They put pucks in behind you, and they're trying to force turnovers in your zone. So, I mean, we'll be practicing to make sure that we're able to withstand a bit of that, but also, I mean, just worrying about our own game and making them kind of have to adapt to play against us. And I'm confident that if we're at the top of our game and we're executing, we'll be a problem for them. Fantastic.
Well, listen, Coach, we really appreciate your time. I know we've kept you longer than we anticipated, but we really appreciate you joining us. Good luck this weekend, and good luck with Team GB as well the weekend after.
No problem, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, Keefe.
Thank you.
Did you hear I even said good luck with Team GB? You proud of me? Look, I'm being magnanimous.
I was going to jump in whenever you asked the GB question there. I couldn't believe it.
See, I'm growing as a person, Coach. I'm growing as a person. I'm showing some sort of interest in Team GB. But a big thank you to Adam Keefe for joining us tonight. Right. Normally what happens now is we do the player of the month, and that we'd have 4 contenders, and I'd go run through the 4 contenders and I'd ask you lads at this who you think should win it. But not this month. This is January. We have put out for the nominations for Player of the Month, and we received no fewer than 129 replies of people giving all sorts of names for regards to the Belfast Giants. So I thought we'd just debate a few and see if we could draw up at least 2 or 3 names to put into the mix, and maybe top it up with a 4th to put out on Wednesday morning with regards to the public vote for the A View from the Bridge, sponsored by Phonacab. I think, Davy, I'll just write Scott Conway down immediately, and we'll move on to the next one, yeah?
It's pretty tricky because Scott Conway should win this month. Scott Conway has been great every month, and I know that we've discussed a few times that he's been left off the nominations, almost like why isn't Collins in the nominations here? He's top scorer this month. He's been the best, the plus minus whatever, but I think he's 9 plus 9, 9 goals, 9 assists through the month. I think he's something like plus 11. He's blocking shots, he's making hits. He is the AVFTB Player of the Month. Mark my words. Save yourself putting a poll up. But yes, number one in the nominations can be Scott Conway for me for sure.
Now I know that Coach is going to come in with another name, and I pretty know that it's Mark Cooper.
Mark Cooper for me. Do you know what? I was thinking about this earlier on today. I think I'm coming on the show and all the rest, and thinking, who does Mark Cooper remind me of from years gone by and all the rest? And always remember, and this is probably one for the old school. So if there's that, people like Chris Revel and those guys who've been around, they'll probably appreciate a story like this. It's just saying, like, a player that brings intangibles. Obviously, Cooper puts up points. He's point a game this season and all the rest. He comes up with clutch goals. But, like, I always look at players who bring intangibles, and always think back to, like, literally, was it season 1 or season 2? When was Dave Matzos with us, Davey? Was that season 2?
Matty was back.
He was
Did Matty play in the playoff team?
I thought he was in the playoff team.
Yeah, so I think he was with us a couple of years. Anyway, Dave Matzos, I think it was second year. And, I obviously got the backside ripped out of me and got the nickname, the coach from the players, all that type of stuff back in the day. And I always remember talking to Whoosh one night, because it's so easy, isn't it? Whenever you look at a team and you see the Paxton Schulte, he was a big tough guy. He was the one that dropped the gloves. You're Sean Burns, you're Jason Ruffs, these guys, silky smooth skaters, par forwards, just everything was very visible. So they instantly became your favorite players. Always remember saying the chatting to West one night way back when, and they said, "Oh, Schulte this and Ruff that and Burns this and so on and so forth." He said, "Yep, hard to disagree, but there's one player for me just constantly brings the intangibles."
Fuck me, coach.
What?
You could have just said Mark Cooper 5 minutes ago.
Oh, Mark Cooper's in, boys, but I like him. And Whistle said to me, "What's Dave Matzos play?" And what Dave Matzos did for the Belfast Giants and those intangibles, night in, night out, that is Mark Cooper.
I don't think we can. Sorry, I thought you were nominating Dave Matzos. I thought that's a real. He hasn't played for us since 2003. I was 20 years since he played, mate.
Boys, I was giving a bit of flavour behind who Mark Cooper reminded me of, and the intangibles that he brings, and does the fine details that a GM or a head coach is always looking for.
If you could only have,
sorry lads, I didn't realise we're all of a sudden under time pressure. Like, I never had time pressure back in the day on this show.
You could only have Matzos man or Mark Cooper, who would you have in your team, coach?
Say that again, Davey. Sorry, I know we're.
You can only have one of the two. You can have Dave Matzos man, or you can have Mark Cooper.
I'm so old school, but I'm going to go with Mark Cooper because he gives me the offensive upside that maybe Matty didn't bring.
That's interesting. So we've got Mark Cooper and Scott Conway. I'm just looking at some of the names that are being thrown up here on Twitter, likes of Mark Patterson saying, Jackson Whistle is thrown up there, Josh Roach is thrown up there, Sebastian Reserve says Mark Cooper 100%, Lauren Elder, Ruop or Roach. We need 2 more names, boys. We need 2 more names. Ben Lake.
So before we go for a Laker, before we talk another forward, I would like the 4 nominations probably this month to have 3 forwards and a D-man. I always like to have a bit of balance in there because you can't win a team without defense. And it's fair to say Ben Lake has that superb 2-way game. Scott Conway's 2-way game is pretty solid. Mark Cooper is obviously very good in his own defensive zone. But we're talking D-men here. We're talking Will Cullen, Gabe Bass, Sam Rupp, Josh Roach, Matt Foley, Jeff Ball, Mark Darside. That's your sort of D-core. Cully has probably been a little bit more offensive on the point side of thing. Gabe Bass, for me, controls the power play. He's that transition D-man that you want to go back old school. He reminds me of a Shane Johnson, someone that can take the puck off his goaltender's stick, go behind his net, set it up, have a look up, and be the first one across the blue line. I like that from Gabe Bass. So if I'm going to nominate, and if coach will indulge me, because that makes the last nomination of the 4 very hard, I'm going to say defensive nominations have to be either Will Cullen or Gabe Bass.
I'd probably go Gabe Bass for his offensive capabilities. I've been really, really impressed by Gabe Bass from the start of the season. And I know we were talking about it. I thought that what he brings from, like, we're not short of offensive defensemen, let's be fair. And we brought another one in Josh Roach. But Bass over the last month and a half, I think, has really come into his own. Maybe it's because he's really noticeable with that blue stick, but it's just gorgeous. That he seems. It's a lovely stick, that, but it's just, I feel that he is one of the real standouts. And but what I also take from that is from the names you mentioned, every single one of them on the D-core have been providing top level service to the Belfast Giants this season, Coach.
Yeah, no, I'm in full agreement. I mentioned Gabe Bass earlier on in the webcast or the podcast. So, yeah, for me, he would be a definite shoe-in from a defensive perspective. Always love the offensive defenseman. Davy gave a good one there, and a blast from the past, and the likes of Shane Johnson and what have you. Someone's able to transition the puck really well, and that always gives a coach confidence as well. As his team heads north, and whenever defensemen can come up with vital points, it always helps massively. So Gabe Bass for me would be a more than adequate addition.
What puts him ahead of Roche? I think Roche has been fantastic. And you look at the feed for the goal. You look at the feed for the goal that Ben Lake scored. Everybody thought he was putting it directly on net. He wasn't. He'd seen Lake open, and Lake redirects it in. Roche has been superb since he's come in.
Coach.
No, geez, I'm not liking this, boys. I'm agreeing way too much with you. I'm normally the contrarian out of everybody. Couldn't agree.
Then say he's rubbish then.
I just think what puts Bass ahead of Roach probably is that Bass plays all three. Bass plays 5-on-5, Bass plays power play, he's key to power play, and Bass plays penalty kill. Whereas Roach and Cullen wouldn't play to the same extent, anywhere near the same extent on the PK. So Bass out there, Bass, for example, Saturday night, 29 minutes time on ice. He's out there for virtually half the game. Cullen is probably in around 22, 23 minutes. So 6-7 minutes more. You take 30-second shifts. He's out there for 6, 7, 8 shifts more during the game. Roach, an absolutely great shout. He's been really, really strong since he came back. Bit like Besco, took those 2 or 3 weeks to really get the wheels moving. But now he's another guy. And same as Gabe Bast, they come down right-handed shot, and they'll come down on the left wing, and they'll walk into the center ice, and they've got that CNI puck. They can find little gaps through goaltenders that other people can't. We don't have that destructive Derek Walser type slap shot from the blue line, but these guys, I think, Gabe Bass is second only to Scott Conway in shots on goal this season. So there's another offensive upside. He will put the puck on net. Yeah. Well, not without the slap shot, but he will put the puck on net consistently. I think he was 8 shots on goal on Saturday night, so 5 shots on goal on Friday night. So 200, I'm going to say 250 shots or something this season from Gabe Bast. I was doing the shots earlier on. So for me, he has that little offensive upside slightly more than the other guys, plus he plays in all 3 situations. So for me, if I get to have you can only have one of Bass, Cullen, or Roach, I'm going for Gabe Bass this month.
So the 4 names I've written down from our discussion are Cons, Coops, Bast, Laker.
We haven't discussed the last one yet.
I wrote
Laker because I felt that's where the conversation was going. So argue with me that it should.
No, there's no argument for me on that either. I think Ben Lake has been absolutely superb. We hear Stiz wax lyrical about it every single night in the web.
There you go, Coach.
And I mean, Ben Lake is an absolutely phenomenal hockey player. Just consistency again, what the coaches and GMs look for in players. Consistency, stepping up to the plate even there on Friday nights. Dropping the mitts. Not something that we need or want Ben Lake to be doing, but again, just going that extra mile for his team. In doing that goes a long way. Resonates with me, resonates with, I'm sure, his teammates as well. The guy is just a complete player, and fully in favour of endorsing Ben Lake. Go on, David. No, be contrarian.
I'm not gonna. Me and Coach have to be contrary. Every month, if you think Scott Conway should be man of the match or player of the month nomination, then you've got to look at who he's been playing with. And David Goodwin has been outstanding this month as well. Great numbers, very, very strong. So, and there's Dave McAlee saying Laker or Hookie. Hook has been outstanding. Ben Lake has come up with a couple of big game-winning goals. He's had man of the match performances. And make no mistake, a lot of that has been to do in January. A lot of that ice time was played with Mark Cooper, Ben Lake, and Lewis Hook playing on the line together. Coops maybe doesn't get the points that he deserves. and he goes in and around that blue paint, he sticks his bum into the goalie's face there, and there's shots raining around him, and they maybe just don't get that wee touch, and the flick Ben Lake's heel the other night, he gets the assist, and you know, and Coops doesn't. So there's something to be said for your line mates. So like for me, I'm happy to go with Ben Lake, but on the proviso, Ben Lake is representing Lewis Hook in this, and I think if Ben Lake won the Player of the Month, he'd be saying this is for my line mates in January, because look, Lake, Hook, and Cooper in January played the most, because Hank, when he came in, when Eriksson came in, he played mostly with Conway and Goodwin, and then obviously at the weekend, Mark Cooper stepped back up, and Goodwin and Eriksson was out on Friday, came in Saturday night, and I think on the third line with Ari and Gilbert. So I'm more than happy with Ben Lake. I think he was superb. We talked about his contribution and goal scoring on that one goal the other night. He does everything. Simon Kitchen talks about him all the time. If you could have a team of Ben Lakes, you wouldn't go far wrong in every championship, you know. So I'm okay with Ben Lake, but I'm honourable. And I'll see who else we've got down here. Hook and Goodwin. Yeah, honourable mentions to Hook and Goodwin.
I can't argue with Hook as well. I think I said to you, I think that Hook has brought, since he's come back, there's another element to his game, an aggressive element to his game, a forechecking element to his game that has been fantastic to watch. His stick handling and bringing the puck into the zone has been brilliant. Going into the corner has been brilliant. And I think that I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that Hook's been a different player since he's come back from Austria. It's been wonderful to watch, but we only have 4 names to put down. So the 4 names that are going forward to the January Player of the Month. The poll will open on Wednesday morning and will go on until Friday. Are Scott Conway, Mark Cooper, Gabe Bast, and Ben Lake. Big thanks to Phonacab for sponsoring that award. Right, we're going to rattle through a little bit of the news and a few talking points from the news. We go to the scores on Friday night. The Guildford Flames took a 5-1 win home from Glasgow. They brought it home from Glasgow before rolling into Saturday, where they beat the Coventry Blaze 4-3 at the Spectrum, and they've gone 6 points clear at the top of the standings at that time, and 4 points clear as of tonight. Incidentally, the Guildford Flames have become the first team to qualify for the playoffs. I know everybody's shocked at that. Elsewhere on Saturday, the Manchester Storm blanked the Nottingham Panthers 2-0 in the Drizzle Dome. I had a conversation on Sunday night in my local pub with a neighbour, and probably some of you know coaching Nick Crawley. And we were talking about how surprising that was to get that. But the way that Nottingham are playing, something I'm going to come back to, I guess it can't be that surprising. The Cardiff Devils give the Fife Flyers an absolute slipper, winning 7-1 in Wales. And on Sunday, the Clan travelled to Nottingham and came away with a memorable 2-1 win. The Devils travelled back up to Dundee, defeating the Stars 5-4, and the Flyers took in the shootout back home against the Storm. But that bounced back with a 5-4 win. Speaking of the Flyers, in the other semi-final, which we mentioned in the first leg last Wednesday, Dudam's side scored a 2-1 win over the Sheffield Steelers ahead of weekend action. The second leg isn't until the 15th of February. Because this is the Challenge Cup and things have to go on and on and on and on. So we won't know for another 2 weeks before we know who we're going to play in that final. I'm going to bring it back to the Nottingham Panthers before we move on, gentlemen. They have coach. They have 2 wins in the last 10 games. It ain't good. It's brilliant. It's now obviously we're all friends of Pash. You're particularly close friends of Pash. Difficult times on Lower Parliament Street.
Yeah, it really has been, and I'm sure Pash will come onto the show at some stage and
banned.
I know after last time he ghosted you, didn't he? But yeah, they've been very, very poor. The recruitment was very, very average. I'm certainly not speaking for. I obviously speak to him on a pretty much daily basis still to this day, and all the rest. So I certainly won't. Certainly not speaking on his behalf in any way. But I think it's patently obvious where you look at that squad right from the get-go of this season, where there were just massive missing chunks, and it's not for me to kind of apportion blame or whatever, but it's
go on.
It's a well, I do. I'm not
what are you on here for if you're not going to do that?
I know. I think there's I suppose fingers to be pointed at, everybody, I suppose, but probably the previous coach in terms of the recruitment. Quite a forthright character and wanted to recruit his team and all the rest. But as I say, that's for Pash to kind of talk to the Panthers fan base, or maybe come on this show and discuss a bit more. But they've been very, very poor, very inept. Pash is literally tearing his hair out about it, working incredibly hard behind the scenes to try and rectify some of those problems, making sure that they get into the playoffs, which is a shocking thing to say, but they're cast adrift there in 6th place, and they're closer obviously to the bottom than they are to the 5th place. There's quite a gap there, and for a club the size of Nottingham and for their kind of history and all the rest, and I'm sure Pash would be honest as well. For I think this notion that seems to permeate around the Elite League that Nottingham is a low budget team is absolute nonsense.
Nonsense, isn't it?
It's just nonsense, and just again, not for me to talk. And I genuinely have no idea what money they spend on a weekly basis. That is the God's honest truth. But it's not a small budget team, or it's for me it would certainly be up there with the big boys in the Elite League. That said, I know for a fact from what Pash has said, crowds amazingly are up this year compared to what they were last year, which again is testament to I think Nottingham is a great hockey city, always has had really good support, but he knows as well as anybody that for next season, and I know the work that he is putting in already ahead of next season with recruitment and numerous other things behind the scenes. He knows that it is a critical year. Critical for the next few months that they make a real push, get the playoffs, try and create something Harry in the playoffs, get to the Final Four, do something special, whatever. I personally, again, I just don't see that team having the ability to do so. So I would imagine that all eyes will be firmly focused on next season.
Then,
Davey, just before you come in with a point, Davey, just for my own.
I'm going to get grilled here now about Nottingham.
Just for my own titillation, I'm going to read you no names on this, but I'm going to read you a couple of tweets that I was reading earlier on. Pathetic. So glad I didn't purchase a season ticket. In an ideal world, season ticket holders this season should get 50% off next season after putting up with this. Must be disheartened walking out of that arena. Black needs to do the right thing and sell! 3 exclamation marks. And then I'm done. Over 20 years, a season ticket holder, but enough is enough. Full credit to Omar and the new social media team who have massively changed the interactions with fans, but the on-ice performances are exhausting to watch. Black needs to go. This idea that Neil Black needs to go is nonsense. Complete and utter nonsense. This is one of these things of be careful what you wish for. Because if the idea that Neil Black selling up is going to be solving the Nottingham Panthers' problems is for the birds. For the birds. I don't think without Neil Black, I doubt there'd be a Nottingham Panthers. Davey?
Listen, Paddy, I as you mentioned earlier on, obviously when I was GM in Manchester for a couple of years, I sat in those board meetings, and I would be the first and have been that person that has said to Neil over the last lot of years, and I saw firsthand, he can be quite abrasive at board meetings, and he can ruffle feathers and so on and so forth, and he can be that cantankerous individual on occasions. But Neil Black, trust me on this, the level of engagement that he has with his hockey clubs is unbelievable. He cares as much as anybody, and he puts money. If you go to him as a general manager or a coach, and he's done this all over the year, I'm not just talking about recently with Pash or whatever, Neil Black will put his money where his mouth is. And for me, and I totally agree with you, Paddy, be careful what you wish for, because we've seen it over the years. We've been around the block for 20 plus years following the Belfast Giants, followed the sport and all the rest. We've seen charlatans as owners and, certain clubs, that you look at Sheffield over the years. Look at Sheffield now compared to what we saw at various different stages where you're going into the Sheffield Arena. Yeah, all that absolute nonsense. 2,000 people in a 9,000. It was a vacuous arena that just had no atmosphere, nothing. Couldn't get bums on stage. All the rest. I know it may well be, but it's got plenty of bums. It's got average of 6,500, 7,000, which is the highest in the Elite League. And so they've done a fantastic job. So it just shows you again with stable ownership and investing and doing the right things. And Nottingham have an incredible loyal fan base, but yeah, there's things that need to be rectified there. But NF boys.
It's NFNF. Sorry, Davey, I interrupted you when you were going to come in.
It wasn't really a question directed at you, coach, as a Nottingham Panthers board member. It was more directed sort of like, Waleski's obviously been announced, or well, I don't know whether he's been announced as leaving, but it's on Twitter there today that he's left to go to Germany. Seen it on Twitter there before it came on air. Whether it's true, whether it's not, I don't know, but it's on Twitter. And if he is off the sunnier climes or colder climes, as it'll be now, that's actually for them one of their better D-men leaving, and they've been a bit funny, coach. To be quite, they've challenged us at times this season. They haven't been that bad, so they're a bit of a roller coaster team. You're not always sure what you're going to get with them.
Yeah, I agree. I look at players like Mike Hammond there, and they've got the right ingredients, but it's just not turning into a proper meal whatsoever. It's you look at Mike Hammond. I saw him in Manchester, saw him in Glasgow. You see him with GB, and just the overall kind of point production from someone like that, who I've no doubt, and again, no idea on individual players and all the rest, but I dare say he's one of their higher paid players. He's maybe their Scott Conway and what have you, or their Cole Sanford. I just, the lack of point production. I know he's maybe a bit more of a disher as opposed to, ripping pucks top shelf, but I just think there's numerous issues there, and I've no doubt that Omar will be working on it from this point on, making sure that things are rectified ahead of next season. So time will tell.
Let's go up the let's go up the M1. You mentioned it earlier on, Coach. This article that appeared in the Sheffield Star today, Bob Westerdale talking about chat he had it with Tony Smith, where Tony Smith has called his coaches together to discuss recent losses. He needed some answers because fans are wanting some answers over why we're dropping points along the way. Everybody's accountable in this business, and we have come off the plan. He also states that we're second in the corners, second to the puck. This is against Belfast. We were second to the corners, second to the puck. We didn't have the fighting spirit, whereas the following night it was an old-fashioned game of hockey. But most notably, he then starts to talk about the fans, and Smith said that we're, quote, one or two fans who should give their heads a wobble after remarks on social media. Posting Aaron Fox out is a ridiculous statement. You always get some idiots who want to push against the tide, but overall, I'm not disappointed with where the club is. Davey, Quinn, you want to comment?
They've sacked coaches that won the league, and Aaron Fox has just turned what? Did you say how many games in 10 of the one?
No, it was 2 and 10 was
Nottingham
Panthers. But anyway, the Steelers have been on a bit of a skid as well, and they're obviously struggling for scoring at times as well. And a lot of their top scoring guys have 1 goal in 10, 2 goals in 10, 3 goals in 10, this kind of thing. I think it says through that statement about it. The fans pay their money and are allowed their opinion. I think you need to be very careful as an organisation just how hard you go back to the fans. And Coach will know better because he's been a GM and he's been involved in that side of it. And he's very media savvy and probably advising what would be the best thing to do there. You can't type your emotions, because that's, telling fans to give their head a wobble. You're then like, who are you telling me to give my head a wobble? I paid 21 quid to come and watch this. So I paid a whole lot of money to get to Belfast. I paid a whole lot of money for tickets. I paid,
But do I utter the phrase "you want to wind your neck in"? I think that the idea that also that comment came back to bite, Robert. I think a lot of people still remember that.
Yeah, I think you just have to be very, very careful of because people in general are very, very sensitive and very, very, very sensitive. Actually, you can't say things to people, and it's maybe the right thing to say because slow your rolls, Sheffield. You're right at the top of the rankings. You've got a very good team. Probably for me, they're the best team I've seen. I think Sheffield, alongside ourselves, are the best. Now, Cardiff are going really well, and I've seen things from Cardiff I really like. Guildford have been great, and I've questioned their depth all season long, even though they carry that extra import. I still think that they're top 6 heavy, they're bottom 6 light. So I think that I just genuinely think whether it's going to be us or somebody else will catch the Guildford Flames. Could be proved wrong. But I just think Sheffield have got everything. They've got goaltending, they've got strong D, they've got forwards that can score on every line. For fans to be throwing the baby out with the bathwater in January when they're right there we talk about getting through Christmas and being in the race. They are right in the title race. And for people that, cracking up, I just think from Tony Smith's perspective, not for me to tell Tony Smith how to run his business, but telling fans what to do isn't a great idea.
How much pressure, coach, is Aaron Fox under in all of this? Because obviously, one Challenge Cup to his name in the abandoned season, but with regards to the league challenges, they are in the mix at the moment, but they've not been head and shoulders above every other team, which is what I guess a lot of people expected from Aaron Fox. This team is as good as any AHL team.
Yeah, listen. Tony and the Sheffield Steelers have historically, as we discussed earlier on, they're not shy in making moves. So he will be feeling the pressure. I do know that he is highly regarded within the club and around the league with other GMs or officials and coaches and so on and so forth. Well respected, very good recruiter. Would there maybe be a question mark over his coaching ability? Potentially. But Tony Smith will not be shy making changes. It really depends, I suppose, as you go down the season, how it finishes, what type of momentum. Do they fall off a cliff? Do they finish in fourth, and then get knocked out at make the final four and get knocked out at the semi-final stage, and all of a sudden it's another bad season for the Sheffield Steelers and fans are in uproar and all the rest. Going back to your previous point around. Again, I think it's very Sheffield, isn't it? And Simsy always said it publicly, privately. He thinks that ice hockey is a Daily Star sport, and I mean that, and I think he means that as in you got to create
tabloid sport, not a broadsheet sport.
Yeah, you got to create. People are only interested if you've got something, I don't know, something bad happens, or you've got something like aggressive to say, or like a real headline. And like, boys, I think we all know Bob as well. But I've met Bob on multiple occasions. He's a great character, but he loves a headline. And if I'd have been advising on that one, I'd have probably been saying to Tony, just give it 3 or 4 days. Let's get up for air after the weekend. Let's have a bit of thought and put a bit of thought into it. Let's speak to the coach and all the rest. See if there's any adjustments that can or need to be made between now and I'm not even sure when the deadline is or whatever for making changes, or if they still have the ability to do so. But just be considered in what you go out. But see, the second you start, making references to fans and coming off with certain terminologies off them, you're on that absolute hiding to nothing. That's just an absolute no. But you don't want to create that added noise. There's already noise on social media. Just I would be a bit more keep your counsel internally if you're talking about the coach and players been under pressure, and so have those conversations inside, and then just manipulate your words slightly better for what you project out there into the public forum is more. It's more positive, but also people can read between the lines and saying, I get what Tony means there. There is a pressure on the players and there is an expectation from ownership and so on and so forth. It's just play on words, for want of a better term.
It is interesting, and see if it has any effect in Sheffield. One more item of news before we wrap up and move on. Have a quick look ahead to the games this weekend. Congratulations to Mark Richardson, becoming only the 3rd player in Elite League history to play 1,000 games. He reached the landmark during Sunday's game for the Cardiff against the Dundee Stars up in Scotland. A point for either of the other 2 players. Well, who are the only other 2 players to have reached 1,000 games?
Oh,
Jonathan Weaver.
Phillips?
No. Jonathan Phillips, yes. Jonathan Weaver, no.
Give me the team.
Nottingham, Cardiff.
Nottingham
and then Cardiff, and then Nottingham again,
Mars,
then Cardiff again.
Matty Mars. It was quite recently too, wasn't it?
Sorry?
It was quite recently too. What's your head there?
I think so.
I thought he was carrying a stick quite high there.
The fact that he plays for Cardiff under Todd Kelman will never surprise me anymore.
Never be forgiven for that. I can't understand, but it's not my bake. It got whacked. So
for those who don't know, he
almost killed him.
broke Todd Kelman's nose with a high stick. And now he's one of Todd Kelman's employees in Cardiff.
I remember that like it was yesterday. The amount of stitches.
I will find a picture while we're chatting here. It was horrific. It was more lip than nose, Paddy. Like actually,
was it more lip? Was it
very bad.
But yes, no, congratulations to Mark Richardson. 1,000 games under the belt in the Elite League. Right, where are we? And do you know what? When I said I was going and the coaches on the podcast, Joanna said to me, "Then I'll see you tomorrow." This won't be done before 10:30, and look at that, it's 10:30. The Belfast Giants are back in Elite League competition this weekend. Both games are at home before a little bit of an international break that takes place the week after. Guildford Flames are back at the SSE, looking for revenge, having been knocked out of the Challenge Cup at the semi-final stage, Saturday at 7 p.m. and against the Five Flyers at home Sunday at 4 p.m. Coach, you know as well as I that Davy hits this part of the show, so I'm going to come to you. Yeah, we heard from Adam Keefe earlier on, and we've played them twice in recent succession. We got them again. They are the 4-point league leaders. This is a big game.
It's a 4-point game in many ways. I suppose you could dress it up as well. I mean, I've said it from their inception into the Elite League, maybe bar last season. I've always enjoyed watching Guildford. I think they're fantastically well constructed team, and they play. They're sometimes a bit loosey goosey, which I think if you've got a really good coach up against the likes of and Paul Dixon, I think is a very good coach, but I think at times they're very loosey goosey. But that's exciting to watch. I think, as I said earlier on, I think the Giants are now, Adam and Steve have made their kind of tweaks to the squad. There's been a bit of forward momentum been built up here. We're starting to head down that kind of stretch. Once you start getting into February and all the rest, that's the real start of the business end. And I almost see like the Giants, and maybe there's more of a recent thing, but I almost see the Giants akin, like in football terms, to say like a City. They almost like flick it into gear in that latter part of the season. And I think, from what I've seen so far this season, Belfast Giants are as good as anything else in the Elite League. And, time will tell whether, the changes that have been made and so on and so forth, whether they were the right decisions. But I think the Belfast Giants can easily go on the march here and pick up another Elite League trophy.
Davey, you had a conversation with Paul Dixon, Scott Cameron there, saying that Digger's doing a stellar job this season, but he is, and we've asked the question more than once. Are Guildford the real deal?
And we've said all along, yes, because stats don't lie, and they're top of the league, and they've got guys that are right up there in terms of scoring. And we've talked about some of their outstanding players, and Tedesco, Tate, O'Connor. You respect these teams more now because the names of their players now roll off the tongue. If I said to you who played for the Hull Stingrays in 2007, you could name one of them, or
Carlos on,
who played for the
Jason Silverthorne.
You'll rack your brain and you'll get one or two. But what I'm saying is, if you go into it now, don't try and be clever. You know what my point is I'm making. The teams down at the lower end of the league, when you're not really engaged in like commentary or doing anything like that, their names don't naturally rhyme off the tongue. Where now you've got Tate and Tedesco and McAdam and Nets. You're paying attention to their stats. You're paying attention to what they're doing game on game. You're looking more in depth at what did he do this week? Did he have points this week? Did he not? What's the form like on their top line? What's their second line doing? And and obviously the coaching staff will be doing all that. So yes, I do think I've said it all season long and said it earlier in the show, so I'm not repeating it ad nauseum, but I just don't know if their depth's enough there. They haven't had Sheffield Steelers are going through their bit of a funk at the minute. The Belfast Giants went through a period, Halloween or thereabouts, and Adam Keefe talked about it as well, where we maybe weren't getting the scoring that we needed, and we were coming up short in games. And you're looking at your goalies to steal you a game, and it wasn't happening for us. Goaltending was good, but they weren't stealing us games. And now goalies are stealing us games. Like Besco on, I think the XG on the Steelers game was like 5-3, and it ended 0-0. So both goalies have stolen the points. Can they consistently do that? They're gotta come. There doesn't have to be a stage where they fall apart, because look at the Paul 80 season for the Giants. Didn't get any injuries. They ran away with the league. They just kept on winning. So Friday night is massive. Absolutely 4-pointer, as coaches talked about it, and I don't want to run through all the cliches, but this is just huge now. We're at that point of the season where you can't lose. It becomes high pressure. Every game
you
is
can,
high pressure.
but you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's playoff hockey
Yeah,
here until
yeah.
the end of the season, and what is beneficial to the Giants is most of their games are at home, coming in the stretch as they tend to be at this time of the year. Sorry, so that game is Saturday 7 p.m. Guildford Flames at home, and then on Sunday 4 p.m. Five Flyers at home. Get yourself down to that, and if you can't, then join Mr. Kitchen on Belfast Giants TV. We'll move to any other business in a second, but you've just shared those with me. Coming back to that point on Todd Kellerman, it was his lip. I always thought it was his nose. I don't know why. Maybe it's been that much of a gap.
See that lip the following day, and for the next week, it was absolutely horrendous. I remember it blew up.
He dealt with it well. Yeah,
He
calls for a ban on wild panther. One of his employees now. Yeah, was one of his employees. One of his employees. But yeah, there you go. I was going to say, I always thought it was his nose. Anyway, any other business, boys? I'm just going to have a quick start with this one and wish well to Dahi McGowan, Marty McGowan, and Seth McGowan, because obviously what's happened in the last number of weeks with regards to the situation of the opt-out and the Dahi's law isn't ideal, isn't great for anybody. We've been putting a few bits and pieces on Twitter and likes, and I know that they were trying to raise a bit of money. Tomorrow they sit down with the Secretary of State to have a conversation about it. I see that there was a post about it's 5 years since they discovered that Dahi would need a transplant heart. And now 5 years on, they're going to have a chat with the Secretary of State. We want to wish them well. Dahi's a great kid, absolutely great kid. He pulls the community together with his enthusiasm, his energy, and just is outright, people just outright love him. And we all see what Dahi's law would bring to the community. And I just want to wish him well, and hopefully we get the outcome that we want from it. Gentlemen, any other business?
No, we just echo that. Obviously, this whole donor thing, if people can sign up to the donor register, I understand it's hard for every good news story that someone needs a heart. Unfortunately, someone else has to give their heart, and that's very difficult for families to deal with as well. So, if you're of that mind that you're in a position to think about it, have a good think about it, have a chat with your family about it. It's not for me to say whether you should or you shouldn't, but definitely talk about it, get the conversation going. And if nothing else, young Dahi has got the conversation going.
Here.
Totally agree with the both of you. No real AOB for me, other than you mentioned there, which says on the webcast. Have to say, boys, Andrew Dixon is absolutely brilliant, isn't he?
Perfect.
Pitch
perfect, man.
And you know why? Because he's so authentic. He's just saying what
a goal! What a goal!
The Ballymoney accent is just absolutely tops it all off. But I genuinely think he's brilliant. The insight that he gives, not just to the listener about the players, but the systems and certain plays on the ice and so on and so forth. I find him super, super insightful. I'm obviously across the pond like you two boys as well. So tuning in on webcasts and all the rest. And listen, sometimes Sis brings the players on board, and I think the players are sometimes nervous because they maybe haven't done it before and they don't know what they're saying and so on. So some of the players over the years have been great that Sis has had, but see when I hear Dicko's on with him, absolutely superb.
Would you believe that Dicko would be? He thinks he's rubbish. Dicko would be on that far more often if he had just a wee bit more confidence. And I'm not doing it out of anything other than belief in him. I'll tell him every time, "You're brilliant on this, mate." And it's not the pompous badge, it's not for anything. It's just to tell him, remind him. Both really good. His insightfulness as a player, coach, is what gets me. He sees things and he sees plays, and there maybe be a face off, and he goes, "Oh, there's a set play coming here. That's or there's been a play," and he go, "Yeah, that's a training ground move kind of thing," And he sees stuff, and he's funny. He's talking about one the other night about going to overtime, beating the Steelers in overtime. He says, but I conceded in like the 59th minute to put it to overtime. So, it's little things. He's very self-effacing. He's very infectious. You could listen to him all night talking hockey.
Well, from my point of view as well, gents, and I just my 2 pence worth, and I think that I agree with you. I think Dicko's excellent, but likewise, Gareth Martin is bringing so much into it now. He's come into it now, and he's growing into it. I think very much so. And coming back into the game, and we were delighted to have him on here a few weeks ago, and it's great to hear those old stories. But what I like about it, the utmost is local voices. Hearing Sis, hearing Gareth Martin, hearing Deco, hearing local voices talk about ice hockey with such authority, with such ability. David McGimpsey, when he's on there as well. There was a guy who used to commentate on there. What was his name?
Absolutely.
Anyway, can't remember his name.
Oh,
But
you did.
Good evening, hockey
Good
fans.
evening, hockey fans.
Welcome.
But
Yes, that's the
but-
arena.
with all love and affection, the Murph and the Aaron Murphy, we love what he is. We love him on this show. He's one of the good guys. But he might be the first to say, to have the Belfast Giants commentated on by local voices is
100%.
second to none for us, and such voices with such experience and authority in the game. And yes, Simon's not everybody's cup of tea. You just had to look at Twitter this weekend to see the mixture of people saying I enjoy it and people saying I have to watch this on mute because he's always shouting. He's a passionate person. Leave him alone.
Yeah, but the stuff that he gets, because sometimes when I'm buying, I've started to kind of say you crack on, because I don't see it. I've watched the vast majority of games, but I don't feel like qualified enough to be sat there and jumping in on a webcast. And whenever I am back home, he often asks me and all the rest, and I've turned down the last kind of few times. But I've seen over the years, whenever I have gone back for the odd weekend, the flack that the big man gets. You're the most biased commentator in the league and all the rest. But I don't find him biased in any way. I think he calls. No, he can. We can all. I was the king of it as well. I could bring the emotion and all the rest to it. The big man's as fair as they come.
Because what happens is especially if a team, especially the Belfast Giants, are winning, that gets if you're watching it, and obviously the majority of his viewers are opposition fans, on the majority of your opposition fans, and therefore if the Giants are winning, your back's up. So if you're hearing something that the Giants are brilliant because they're winning, your back's up and you're like going, he's biased against us. I totally agree. I think that more often than not, you can hear him calling again. Yes, I think there was a bit of an issue this week of, giving assists to referees, which was a bit of a touchy one, but entertaining nonetheless. But I think Sis is fair. I think he's passionate. He knows what he's talking about. As well as anybody, Coach, play-by-play calls are not easy. They are difficult.
As hard as it comes, it honestly is, because you're watching everything, but you're also trying to think ahead, and you're trying to keep the conversation, and you rely very heavily on your sidekicks to be kind of joining in with you. Thanks for that, Davy. You rely on your sidekicks to be, so you need a good side man or woman there to be kind of keeping the conversation flowing and all the rest. Play by play is very, very difficult.
But excellent to see. We're going to wrap it up, Davey. Don't worry. A little WhatsApp of Davey telling us it's 1 hour and 45 minutes. But tell us this, Davey, have you enjoyed it?
It's great to have Coach back. I could do this. I'm not going to say I could do it every day, but I love having him on. It's old times, eh?
Good old times.
Good man. Thanks for coming back on, Coach. We really appreciate it. And how's the little one, by the way?
Little one's doing very well, mate. Yeah, little one's doing very well. It's just over 6 months now, so settled into the world superbly well, and Christy settled into motherhood absolutely superbly well as well. So no, all's good.
Remarkable to think when you spend half your time in North America. So
it's been very busy kind of last 2-3 months. I've been in the States 3 or 4 times, I think, in the last few months. It's a great perk of the job and all the rest. Got to take in some NHL as well whilst working. So got to took in the Florida Panthers against New York Rangers, which the Panthers won. That was early December. Then we're out in Colorado. Saw the Avalanche against the Rangers, and the Rangers won that one. It was a great game. Saw Cale Makar. What a player Cale Makar is, boys. Unbelievable. To watch him live is, you talk about like a defenseman transitioning the puck, the speed, the skill, everything, my goodness. And then we're out in Miami. Didn't see any hockey in Miami, but then we're in Boston, and we saw the Bruins against the Kraken. And the Kraken beat the Bruins. The Bruins were awful that night, actually, but what an arena TD Gardens is, eh? I don't know if you've ever been. That's one of the best arenas out there. Robert Fitzpatrick, Robert's actually, as I said earlier on, he's over seeing me tomorrow for the day, and he just eulogized about the TD Gardens in Boston, and everything that I saw backed that up as well. So it's been great get taken in some hockey whilst away with work. So it's been a busy period. That's my travels done for the next couple of months anyway.
And did you have a conversation with somebody who's actually played in Belfast? Maybe he was outshone by Stephen Murphy one day.
That's correct. Yeah, and you're talking about Sean Thornton, yeah?
No, I'm talking about Tucker Rask, to be honest with you.
Oh, of course, Tucker Rask, of course, yes. So in Boston, and so yeah, I was away with work, and we were in kind of the owner's box there and what have you in Boston, which was a great experience.
And what have you? Because that's where me and Davey go over. That's where we hang out, isn't it, Davey?
Well, it's work related. They weren't letting me in off the street. It was all work related, and I think they picked up. What am I looking at here? Sorry, mate. Yeah, they knew that I was a big hockey fan, and the Boston Bruins and the Belfast Giants connection, all the rest. So just stood there, and all of a sudden tapping the shoulder, and it was Tucker Rask. So he was, do you know what, boys? And this is what I love about the whole hockey player element. All of our own views and opinions. Premier League footballers or American footballers and so on and so forth. Hockey players stood talking to Tucker Rask for 45, 50 minutes about everything, talking about his trip to Belfast with the Bruins, how that was a catalyst for them and the success that they had and so on and so forth, talking about the pubs that they visited while they were here in Belfast and their trip on. I think they went on to Prague thereafter. And he just said that the start of that whole season began in Belfast. And so it was great. And then bumped into Sean Thornton, looked after me very well in Florida at the start of December, and was obviously talking about the trip to Belfast and his family connections to Northern Ireland and so on and so forth. So he's now funny. He sent me a text about a week ago asking me could I sort out a round of golf at Royal County Down and Royal Portrush for him and his buddies coming over in June. So it's like, he scratched my back, so I've got to try and scratch his.
Can you organise that, David? Do you want a round of golf?
Why, for the buddies?
Aye. It sounds like we're for Royal County Down.
Wasted on me, all that stuff, boys. I'm not a golfer in any manner.
I'm sure Sean. I wonder will Sean wear his Davy McJimsey game worn to the Royal Portrush?
I passed on the stuff that you kindly sent me across, and Laura, I think, maybe sent it. I can't remember now, but dropped all the stuff off Belfast Giants related, which he was very appreciative of as well. So it's been a busy kind of few months, man. Yeah.
Well, mate, it sounds like you're having a wheel of a time, but we appreciate you taking time and coming back on and joining us. We've enjoyed having you on, Davey. As always, thanks for your time, and if you get that banana into you, you're obviously flagging now. Look, you're looking well, to be honest. You're looking.
Thanks very much, mate. Thank you.
The games we said this weekend: Belfast Giants versus Guildford Flames, Saturday 7 p.m. at the SSE Arena, and then on Sunday at 4 p.m. the visit of the Fife Flyers. Get yourself down to those games, and if you can't, Giants TV is where you'll get that coverage with Mr. Kitchen. Gentlemen, a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Paddy.
You can get us at AVFTB on Twitter, on Facebook, on kingdomofthegiants.com, and all the usual sort of places. Download the podcast, find us on YouTube, Twitter, and on Facebook. Wherever you are this weekend, we hope you enjoy your hockey. We'll catch you here next time on A View from the Bridge.
Dashing up against the world and steal you right.